Good evening. Tonight we are going to discuss creation myths in Wicca. Now it's important to note that no one actually believes creation myths are describing exactly how the universe was created. That would be nonsense. Instead, creation myths are an allegory. Creation myths are just what they sound like. They are myths to explain where we came from and why we're here. Wiccans usually believe in a creation myth, but it's not always the same creation myth, and a lot of Wiccans just never think about it at all, which is completely valid. If creation myths do not concern you, then they're not something you ever really have to decide to pay attention to. You don't have to delve into creation myths. You don't even have to believe in one, not to be Wiccan. They are more a tool, a way to help us understand the universe. They are in no way meant to be taken literally. Wiccans tend to make up their own mind regarding creation, so even within one circle or one coven, you will have people with very different beliefs regarding creation myths. The myth that I am going to talk about, the one that I am going to read to you today, does not claim to be any more correct than any other creation myth provided by any other tradition or religion. This myth is an allegory, a metaphor, meant to convey deeper and more complex ideas. It should not be taken literally. It is a story. So here is one of the very many creation myths you might hear in Wicca. In the beginning, there was the goddess, and from her mind and her breath came forth matter and its ruler, the god. And she looked upon him and loved him as herself. For they were truly one flesh, opposite sides of the same coin. Her love became his passion. Her smile became his laughter. Her softness, his sharpness. They were the yin and the yang, opposites crossed and joined. Yet as they were different, so they were the same, for part of her resides in him, and part of him in her. Together they made love and dreamt of many things, and from their thoughts sprang forth existence and all that is within it. Marveling upon the wonder and beauty of the earth below them, they came down to it, and played among its waters and its caverns. They raced amongst the clouds and soared above the peaks and heights of the mountains. The lady then decided to make her home the depths within the earth and the waters that lay upon it. For as life came from her, so does life come from the earth and the waters that abound upon it. She chose the moon as her symbol, since it affected the waters so deeply. The god chose the sky and its boundless freedom for his abode. He also taught to man fire, and on occasion still can be seen dancing in those golden fiery flames. And he chose the sun as his symbol, since it warms the waters and brings his love, the goddess, closer to him. The earth spun forward on its orbit, and the goddess became heavy with the child of the gods soon after what would later be called Beltane, the 1st of May. The child, their son, was born and came quickly to adulthood. And as all sons do, he rose up against his father and strove for power. And the battles raged between father and son, between Oak King and Young King. The mother, the goddess of us all, became weary and aged with the battles, and as she aged, so did the earth. Finally, fearing for her life, the old king, the father, laid down his sword of power and descended into the underworld. But the goddess, now missing her lover, left the young king and went in search of the old king. And so on she descended into the underworld, leaving the earth and all its inhabitants behind. Without her life and care, the earth quickly descended into the depths of winter. Yet the goddess returned from the underworld, again heavy with child, and the promise that the old king would come again at Yule and reclaim his rightful place. True to his word, as the sun rose and the light returned to the world, the old king sprang forth and struck at his once and future son. Realizing his folly, and knowing that defeat was near, the young king bowed and walked away from the fight, knowing that he would return in the spring, and that his story would repeat itself again, and that by this would the seasons be counted, and the year and time itself would be measured by his story. So look at the holidays that we celebrate and know that this story has repeated itself through the ages and will continue to do so. It will repeat again and again until all grinds to a halt and we all return to the mother from which we all sprang. And all will begin again. For there is no beginning to time, nor is there an end. The myth you just heard was written with a specific purpose in mind. It was written to help young children understand where the earth might have come from, according to mythology, and how the cycle of the year came to be worshipped by those who follow pagan paths. It is not meant as a literal explanation of creation. Of course it's not. But it is instead a story meant to be interpreted. It can inspire thought and emotion and help to put the physical world in perspective, but it in no way claims that there is any actual evidence to back up this myth, and in fact, I don't know a single Wiccan who would take that myth and say, yeah, that's how it happened, because it clearly didn't. That's not how it works. But it is nice to have a myth that you can talk about, a myth that you can later discuss with your children or discuss with your friends and family or simply discuss with other people who are Wiccan and might have a different creation myth. They're all equally valid. They're just stories. That's about it for this week. Blessed be.